The Diary of Elizabeth H. Platt. The account of her journey from New York to Green Bay, Wisconsin in 1836 with her mother, Sarah Esther Henshaw, including a visit among the Winnebago Indian tribes.
Chapter 3. Rochester to Niagara via Brockport and Lockport. On Monday morning at 9 o'clock, we took leave of our kind friends and entered the stage for Brockport, Mother and Henry. We had a crowd of passengers. Our way lay over the ridge road, which is always smooth, it being formed, as is supposed, by the waters of Lake Ontario having receded, and left this dry and hard embankment, which has assumed the name of the Ridge Road. It extends the whole length of the lake within about 5 miles of its southern shore. It is said as the waters annually recede from the southern shore, they overflow the northern, the lake thus preserving its size, although it changes its place. The day was comfortably cool, but the roads were excessively dusty and rendered our ride exceedingly unpleasant. We passed some fine farms and through the little village of Ogden and Parma. When we reached Clarkson, within 1.5 miles of Brockport, Harriet and myself aligned from the stage, and for the rest of our journey, quote, made use of those old-fashioned instruments, the legs, unquote. They served us well, and time, which brings all things, brought us to Brockport, through the length of its flat, uninteresting village, and at length to Mr. Sadler's house, the present residence of Henry and Harriet, where we found Mother and Henry not apparently expecting us. We spent 5 days at Brockport with little variety, paying 2 tea visits, one at the home of Mr. Burroughs, whose wife is a nice little Connecticut lady, and the other at Mr. Sadler's brother to our host. We rode also twice a few miles to the village and its immediate vicinity. But we came not here to visit or see sights, but for the enjoyment of renewed and delightful interchange of thought and affection with one of those dear sisters whose love and companionship have done so much towards making the happiness of my life. It was sweet to have them this partially restored, after these fountains of enjoyment have been so entirely suspended. Brockport contains about 4,000 inhabitants. The soil is remarkably fertile, and the country so level as to be admirably calculated for agricultural pursuits. But as a matter of taste, it is to me exceedingly monotonous and wearisome, and I was not sorry to bid it adieu. We took my brother and sister with us, and on Monday morning, the 29th of August, entered the stage for Niagara. We took the canal road passing through Albion, Portville, Middleport to Lockport, where we stopped for the night. Here we saw Homer Stewart, who gave us some Middlebury news, to wit, that Bushnell and Lawrence were coming west in the tide of immigration. On Tuesday morning after breakfast, we walked out to survey the stupendous locks connected with the canal at this place, there being a succession of 6 double locks cut out of the solid stone, and the canal, for the distance I think of 500 feet, is hewn out of the same solid mass. An inscription to the genius and energy of DeWitt Clinton is exhibited in front of the double locks, and they will be lasting monument to the mind which conceived and the perseverance which executed this noble work. The Almighty in the beginning gave the command to subdue the earth, and this is an emphatic illustration of the power he imparted to man along with the injunction. We passed through the Indian village of Tuscarora, where we saw several of the aboriginal inhabitants of the country, with squaws and papooses, came in sight of Brock's monument at Queenston, and turned off, journeying by the banks of the beautiful Niagara to Manchester. The banks of the river are excessively high and wild, being for the most part lined with rugged rocks or wooded to the very summit, while the bright green wave passed rapidly and joyously between them like a triumphant visitor. My enthusiasm was already awakening, for I had seen Niagara Falls, the glory and
End of chapter 3.
But I wanted to witness the influence of their surpassing scene upon my mother and younger sister. They were amazed, delighted, transported, but the scene did not burst upon them at once in its overwhelming grandeur and sublimity, as when we first looked upon from Table Rock, but we caught a little glimpse of it from the road, then the rapids, then the American Fall, and finally the magnificent spectacle from Table Rock, so that it came by piecemeal. Added to this, Mother was so excessively timorous that she feared to approach within 5 or 6 yards of the edge of the rock, and so heavy that she could not pass up and down the steps with gossamer lightness, and was therefore prohibited from observing it, either in perfection or variety. But take Niagara as you will, and whatever disadvantage, it is still unique, still transcendent, still appalling. There is nothing like it. In the wide universe it stands preeminent, a shrine for nature's pilgrims, where the God of nature seems to have concentrated his mighty power and calls on mortals to wonder and adore.
End of chapter 3.